My grandson said I wasn't family anymore. You're just my father's mother, he snapped. So I gave my inheritance to his ex-wife. I stayed quiet until the will revealed the truth. Don't bring that. You're not even family anymore. You're just my father's mother. That was the first thing my grandson Darren said to me at Thanksgiving dinner. No hello, no thank you, no how are you, Grandma. Just that. The words hit me before I even had the chance to set the pie down on the table. I had spent the whole day cooking in that kitchen, my kitchen, the same 7-kicking kitchen where I had taught Darren how to measure flour without making a mess. The same oven where I used to bake him cookies shaped like dinosaurs when he was 6 and afraid of the dark. And now, at 29, he looked at me like I was just a stranger who wandered in off the street with a dessert no one asked for. Monica, his new wife, leaned in with that smirk she always wore when she wanted to say something mean but make it sound like a joke. Yeah, she still thinks she matters. Just put her in a home already. A few snorts of laughter followed. Not loud, but enough. My son David, Darren's father, kept his eyes on the turkey, as if carving the perfect slice was more important than standing up for his mother. I stood there for a moment, holding that apple pie in both hands. It was still warm. The crust was golden, brushed with cinnamon and butter. Darren used to beg for it every year. But now it looked out of place, just like me. I stood there for a long moment, holding the edge of the chair, wondering if anyone would look up, if anyone would notice I had gone quiet. But their laughter kept rolling. Darren was already carving into the ham. Monica poured herself more wine. I was a shadow in my own dining room. The same room where Darren had opened his high school acceptance letter. The same table where I once iced his birthday cake at midnight because his mother forgot. I used to be Mama E. Now I was just a burden with a pie. No one offered to help me set it down. No one offered me a seat. No one even said Happy Thanksgiving. I slowly placed the pie in the center of the table and took the empty chair at the very end. They talked and laughed and toasted their wine like nothing had happened, like I was invisible, like I wasn't the reason that table, that roof, that family even existed. As I sat there, hands folded in my lap, I began to remember. I remembered when Darren's mother left, packed up her things one rainy Tuesday and never looked back. Darren was just 5. He cried for nights. It was me who held him, sang to him, told him over and over again that he was loved. When David was too busy rebuilding his life, it was me who stayed. I remembered how I cashed in part of my retirement to help pay for Darren's college tuition when his scholarship ran short. I bought him his first car. I co-signed the lease on his first apartment. I even helped him furnish it when Monica decided she couldn't live without a proper dining set. And now, at this table, surrounded by people I had fed and clothed and held together, now I was the one out of place, just my father's mother. They laughed over turkey in the house I'd paid off, while treating me like a ghost. The rest of the meal passed in a blur. No one asked how I was doing. No one passed me a roll. I ate in silence, chewing slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat with each bite. After dinner, I cleared the table by myself. Monica and Darren retired to the living room to look at nursery paint colors on their phones. David finally spoke to me in the kitchen, casually, as if nothing had happened. Darren's got his own family now, Mom. Let's not make things dramatic. I did not answer. I just nodded and wiped down the counter, like I always did, like nothing had changed, except everything had. Later that night, when the house was quiet and everyone had gone upstairs, I stood alone in the living room. The lights were dim, the fireplace cold. I looked around at the walls. Family photos hung in neat rows, Darren in his graduation cap, Monica and Darren on their wedding day, even the ultrasound of their unborn baby. But nowhere was there a photo of me. I walked upstairs to my bedroom, even though they had started calling it the guest room, and opened the drawer in my nightstand. Inside was the envelope I had avoided for years. It held the property deed, my investment certificates, and a copy of my will, unsigned. I stared at the paperwork for a long time. They wanted the house. They wanted me out of the way. They wanted my money, my silence, my compliance, but not me. I picked up the phone and called Joe, my lawyer. Joe, it's Evelyn. I think it's time I updated my will. He paused as if surprised. Of course. You want to schedule an appointment for next week? No, I said, steady. Tomorrow. And Joe, this time, I'm not leaving anything blank. I know exactly who gets what now. When I hung up, I looked out the window. The stars were bright and cold. They had wanted me silent, but I was done being quiet. The dishes clattered in the sink louder than they should have, maybe because the rest of the house had gone silent, emptied of voices, warmth, or care. Everyone had gone off to laugh in the living room, talk about shopping deals and baby names, while I stood alone in the kitchen, scraping stuffing off the plates I had set myself. No one offered to help. Not even a thank you lingered in the air. There was a moment, just a quiet, brief one, where I stared at the pie plate, the one Darren shoved aside like it was garbage. Apple pie, homemade, his favorite since he was 6. He used to ask for thirds. I used to hide the last slice in the fridge just for him, and today he pushed it away like it disgusted him. I wiped my hands slowly. My knuckles had grown stiff these past few years, but I still moved with care. The rhythm of cleaning, plate, glass, silver, was muscle memory now, the kind that keeps a woman going when everything else tells her to sit down and disappear. I heard the door open. Greg, my son. He arrived an hour late, as usual. Always with some excuse ready. "Hey, Ma," he said, shrugging off his coat like he lived here. "Sorry I'm late, traffic." I didn't answer right away. I was rinsing a platter. He stepped into the kitchen and glanced at the leftovers, still untouched. "Wow, looks like you made the works. Shame I missed most of it." He poured himself a drink, then leaned against the counter like it was nothing. "What happened in here?" he asked casually, noting the quiet. I dried my hands and said flatly, "Your son called me a burden. Said I'm not family." His wife laughed. Greg chuckled nervously. Come on, Mom. He's just stressed. Darren's got a lot going on now. A baby on the way, new job. Let it go, Mom. He's got his own life now." Let it go. That phrase curled in my gut like bad milk. I turned to him. "Do you remember who paid for his first car?" He blinked. "What? Or who drove him to every summer camp after his mother left? Who bought his college books? Who co-signed the apartment you couldn't afford to help with?" Greg sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I mean, yeah, but that was years ago. Things change, Ma." I gave a small nod. "Yes, they do." He didn't notice the finality in my voice. He was already walking out of the room, calling over his shoulder. "I'll swing by next week. I need those old tools from the garage." The front door clicked shut behind him, and I stood in the quiet. No one noticed the centerpiece I had arranged by hand. No one asked about the photo of my husband I placed by the table, like I always did every Thanksgiving. No one remembered I was here before them all. I turned off the kitchen light and climbed the stairs slowly, feeling each step in my bones. The ache was deeper tonight, not just in my joints, but in places no one could see. My bedroom welcomed me like an old friend, still and soft. The scent of lavender from a drawer sachet drifted in the air. I walked to the closet, pulled aside the quilt I had stitched in the winter of '89, and opened the safe. Tucked between the pages of the old will was a photo, faded, creased, but still warm with memory. Darren was 5, grinning with cake on his nose. I had made that cake. He had called me Mama E that day. I stared at it, my hand trembling, not from age, but from the quiet ache of remembering who I had been to him and what I had become. The click of the lock was solid, comforting. Inside, the title deed to the house, still in my name. The folders, bank statements, retirement accounts, certificates. A lifetime of work measured in numbers they never bothered to ask about. And the will. I pulled it out. It was old, unfinished. I had left it blank at the bottom. Maybe I thought they would earn their names there. Maybe I believed love would be returned with loyalty. But tonight I saw clearly that document wasn't unfinished because of oversight. It was waiting for this moment. I sat down at the desk. My hands weren't shaking, not anymore. I dialed the number I hadn't used in 5 years. "Mrs. Evelyn?" came the familiar voice of Mr. Horowitz, my attorney. "Is everything all right?" "No," I replied calmly, "but it will be." A pause. "I need to update my will," I said. "This time, I won't leave it blank." He nodded audibly through the line. "Understood. Do you have changes in mind?" "Yes," I said. "Remove all family listed previously." He asked, "And who would you like as beneficiary?" I will get back to you on that, I said. We agreed on a time to meet. I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. Instead, I felt something cold and precise click into place, like a drawer sliding shut, like the final stitch in a seam no one thought I had the hands left to sew. That night, I reviewed every document again. I began transferring accounts into a trust. I set up 2 new accounts only I could access. I moved the house title into a private LLC under my full control. I revoked the medical and financial power of attorney they assumed they held, and I locked the safe again, not just with paper inside it now, but with resolve. Downstairs, I heard Monica's laughter from the guest room as she FaceTimed her sister. "Trust me," she said, her voice floating through the vents. "By this time next year, we'll have that house sold and be out of here. I'm not living in this dusty old dump much longer. We'll upgrade, maybe a pool." I smiled faintly. They thought I was asleep. They thought I was fragile. They thought I was done. But the thing they forgot is, quiet doesn't mean powerless. I had survived loss, war, recession, and grief. I had survived raising 2 children alone, and now being told I was just the father's mother. No, I was the spine. I was the root. I was the reason they even had this table to sit at, and from now on I would be the one deciding who deserved a seat. I had not seen Kelsey in nearly 2 years. Not since the day Darren served her divorce papers and erased her from every family photo like she had never been there. But I remembered. I remembered everything. She used to call me Mama E. She brought me soup after my gallbladder surgery and sat with me through physical therapy when Greg was too busy to show up. When I could not climb the stairs for a week, she came every night to help me bathe and braid my hair. She remembered which tea calmed my nerves, which songs made me cry, and how I liked my toast, burnt. And then she was gone. I had heard whispers of her working at a school out in Cedar Run. Small place, low income, the kind of school where teachers brought snacks from their own kitchen. I found the address online and drove out there on a Thursday morning. The building was old. Brick faded to rose and moss climbing up the corners. There were plastic pinwheels stuck into planters and finger-painted signs taped to the glass doors. Miss Kelsey's class was written in bright green marker on the window of the last room on the right. I waited until the final bell rang. Children filtered out with backpacks larger than their torsos, some waving goodbye with sticky hands. Then I saw her. She looked tired. Her hair pulled back too tightly. Her clothes were clean but not new. She was wiping paint from a table when she looked up and saw me through the window. For a moment she just stared. Then she opened the door. "Evelyn?" I nodded. She covered her mouth with one hand. Her eyes were already red. We sat on the bench outside, under a maple tree that had lost most of its leaves. "I didn't think you'd want to see me again," she said quietly. "I should have come sooner," I replied. She looked down at her hands. Her nails were short, bitten down. "It's okay," she said. But it was not. I placed my hand gently over hers. "How are you, really?" Kelsey took a shaky breath. "I lost the baby 5 days before Christmas. Miscarried in the kitchen while Darren was watching football." My fingers curled slightly. I begged him to come with me to the hospital. He didn't. Just stood there and said, "Clean it up." Her voice cracked. "And when I came back from urgent care, he had packed my suitcase." I said nothing. Kelsey went on, voice trembling. "He said, you lost the baby. You lost your value." The wind rustled through the bare branches. I looked at her, this girl I once called family, not by blood, but by bond. "I should have stopped him," I whispered. "I should have made him see who you are." She wiped her cheek with the sleeve of her cardigan. "I'm fine now. I rent a room. I work. I'm still here." I smiled sadly. "That counts for a lot." She turned to me. "Why did you come, Evelyn?" I paused before answering. "Because I remember who you were when no one else showed up." She tilted her head. "You came when I needed help. You held me upright when my body failed me. You cared without being asked." Kelsey's eyes filled again. "They erased us both, Kelsey," I said gently, "but I still hold the pen." I reached into my bag and pulled out something small, wrapped in tissue. It was the silver locket Kelsey had given me the Christmas before she lost the baby, engraved with a tiny E, for Evelyn. "You said I was your second mother," I whispered, placing it in her palm. "You still are," she said, tears falling again. She stared at me, unsure what I meant. I did not explain further, not then. That night I went home and reopened the folder in the safe. The will, fresh copy, new terms. I crossed out every name tied to betrayal, the ones who dined at my table and left me hungry for kindness. I removed Darren. I removed Greg. I even removed the contingency clauses. And then I wrote one name, Kelsey Marin Collins. I signed it slowly, firmly, my handwriting steady as ever. The next morning I had the papers notarized and mailed to Mr. Horowitz with express delivery. No hesitation, no doubt. They thought I had no power left. But paper speaks. And now my paper spoke her name. That afternoon I returned to Cedar Run and stood at the fence outside the school. Kelsey was planting paper flowers with the children. She saw me and smiled. I did not need to tell her anything more. But someday, when the world finally gives her something good, I want her to know she did not receive a gift. She received what she earned, what she was owed. I left that day without saying goodbye. Sometimes real love does not need to be explained. Sometimes real justice does not make noise. It signs its name and walks away with its head held high. I began noticing the whispers. They thought I was asleep when they talked, half sipping wine, half dreaming of futures that didn't include me. "He's too old to be managing property," Monica once said in the kitchen, assuming I was upstairs. "It's time we take the reins." "But the deed's still under her name," Darren whispered. "Then get her to sign, or find someone who'll buy regardless. The market's hot, sell before she croaks, and the taxes get messy." I stood behind the hallway corner, holding a folded dish towel. My heart didn't race, not anymore. That muscle had already been broken too many times. The next morning, Darren made coffee like nothing was wrong. Monica sat with her laptop, just checking something for work, she claimed. But when I passed by, I caught a glimpse of her browser, a real estate listing form. It had a photo of my porch, my swing, my azaleas. They were putting the house up without telling me. I said nothing. That evening, while they went out to see friends, I checked the hidden camera I had installed in the corner of the living room lamp last spring, the one Darren had never noticed. My lawyer had advised me long ago. When people think you're old, they stop pretending. That's when you record. I hit play. The audio was scratchy but clear enough. Monica laughing into her phone, voice sharp as vinegar. "We'll sell the old witch's house while she's napping. She won't even know. I'll tell the agent she's senile if needed." Darren chuckled in the background. "Once it sells, we'll move her to a little place. Something manageable, assisted living, nothing too fancy." "I'm not wasting a cent on private care," Monica snapped. "She raised your father, not you." Then came the clinking of wine glasses. They toasted to it. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from focus. They thought they had outmaneuvered me, but they'd forgotten something crucial. I am not dead yet. The next day, I called Mr. Horowitz. "I need the house title moved into a revocable trust. Irrevocable after my passing." He asked no questions. "You want to add restrictions?" "Yes," I said. "No sale, no lien, no modification, not without the trustee's signature, which will never be them." Then I visited my investment broker and pulled every cent of stock I had gifted Darren years ago into my private portfolio. I closed the shared account, moved the cash, froze the secondary credit card he never gave back. The house was paid off. The cars were mine. Everything under my name. Protected, sealed, transferred. Monica and Darren returned home that evening laughing about countertops. Monica walked past me with a smirk and said, "Hope you like Florida, Evelyn. That's where the best sunshine homes are." I didn't reply. I just sipped my tea and looked out the window. They had no idea the locks, legal and financial, were already changed. 2 weeks later, the real estate agent rang the doorbell, expecting a home tour. I answered. Calm, steady. "I'm sorry," I said. "The house is not for sale, and I'd recommend you withdraw the listing. It's unauthorized." He blinked. "But I spoke with your—" "Not my power of attorney," I interrupted. "Not even my blood." He stammered, apologized, and left. I watched from the window as he called Monica, pacing, confused. That night, Monica stormed through the door, slamming her purse on the counter. "You humiliated us," she hissed. "No," I said softly. You did that yourself. Darren stood in the corner, red-faced, uncertain. He didn't speak. Cowards never do when truth walks into the room. The next morning I packed a small bag. Just essentials. I didn't tell them where I was going. I did not owe them that. The house would remain in my name, but I no longer wanted to breathe the same air as those who saw me as furniture. I walked out before sunrise. The hallway echoed with absence, not of me, but of love, of gratitude, of all the things they never offered and never earned. They emptied this house, hoping to fill their future, but I emptied it too, for my peace. I asked for no funeral, no flowers, no open casket, no slideshow of photos no one ever asked to see while I was alive. I left instructions. Cremation. Quiet, efficient, no gathering, no false tears. Let them grieve in silence or not at all. The only event I allowed was the will reading, a formal one at Horowitz and Bellman, my lawyer's firm downtown. Polished mahogany table, thick drapes. A single envelope with my name in cursive, sitting on the desk like a final word. Darren came in first, eyes red but dry. Monica followed behind in heels too high for mourning. My son arrived next, looking more annoyed than sad. He hadn't spoken to me in weeks before I died. There were others too, the notary, the executor, a few wide-eyed younger relatives who showed up with hope in their hearts and dollar signs in their eyes. And then Kelsey walked in. She wore a simple navy blouse, her hair tied back, eyes soft but unreadable. She nodded to no one. Sat in the corner, almost invisible, almost. Mr. Horowitz cleared his throat and opened the envelope. I'll read the final will and testament of Evelyn Rose Mitchell, signed and notarized on the 14th of March this year. He adjusted his glasses and began. To my biological son, Michael Mitchell. Michael perked up, straightening his tie. I leave my wedding band and photo album from our time in Colorado. You once told me you missed the snow. That is all I have left of it. Michael froze. Horowitz continued, calm as ever, to Monica Harrington Mitchell. Monica's smile twitched. I leave a collection of etiquette books I received over the years. May they serve you better than they served me. Her smile cracked. Darren leaned forward, visibly tense. To my grandson, Darren James Mitchell. He nodded, expectant. I leave the set of engraved silver spoons I inherited from my mother. You once said they looked too old-fashioned to bother with, but they have endured generations. More than I can say for some relationships. The silence turned sharp. Monica muttered something under her breath. And now, Horowitz said, placing a second paper on the table, for the full distribution of my estate, which includes the house at 43 Hemlock Drive, all remaining retirement savings, stocks, bonds, and personal accounts, totaling approximately $2.1 million. Everyone leaned in. I leave it all to Kelsey Marin Collins. This will, the lawyer continued, was notarized 3 years ago with full legal witness and accompanied by a video file. In the recording, Evelyn clearly states the name of her sole heir and explains her decision. He pressed play. Evelyn's voice came through, calm, measured. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone, and it means I chose love over obligation. The room collapsed into gasps. What? Darren slammed a hand on the table. She's my ex. She's nothing. She wasn't even family anymore. Horowitz didn't flinch. He simply folded his hands and replied, No, she was everything. To the woman you discarded. Darren stood, furious, turning toward my son. Dad? You're going to let this happen? She's not even blood. Michael looked down, said nothing, perhaps because deep down he knew. Kelsey didn't move. She sat frozen, her face pale, eyes wide with disbelief, tears threatened but never fell. She took care of me, Horowitz said, this time speaking from the heart, not the paper. When I had shingles last year, Evelyn told me Kelsey was the only one who visited, the only one who remembered what she liked in her tea, the only one who rubbed her feet and read her psalms during recovery. Bullshit, Darren spat. Horowitz stood now too, placing the will into a folder. Your grandmother, he said evenly, wasn't senile. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was manipulated, Monica snapped. This is fraud. No, Horowitz said firmly. This was recorded, every word, every signature, witnessed, notarized, and filed. She made her decisions clear, with full capacity of mind. and if you want to contest it, I suggest you prepare to pay for legal fees you can no longer afford." A sharp breath sucked the air from Darren's chest. Monica looked like she wanted to throw her purse at the wall, but there was nothing left to fight over. Only Kelsey, still quiet, still in shock. As everyone filed out, she stayed in her seat, hands resting on her lap. Horowitz finally looked at her and said softly, "She trusted you." Kelsey whispered, "I do not deserve this." Horowitz gave a sad smile. "Maybe not, but you never asked to deserve it, and that's why you do." Outside the office, Darren shouted obscenities into the parking lot. He threatened lawsuits, vowed revenge, but it was already written, signed, witnessed, sealed. I had spoken. From the grave, perhaps, but louder than I ever had in life. My name was not whispered often in this town. I had become a shadow at my own dinner table, a burden in the house I paid off, a ghost in the stories my grandson told his new wife. But someone remembered, and she remembered me with grace. Kelsey did not touch the money for weeks after the will was read. I know this because I asked my attorney to inform me, before I died, how she reacted. He said, she wept, quietly, just stood in his office holding the envelope like it was something sacred. She had every reason to walk away. Darren had humiliated her, tossed her aside after she lost their child. And I had watched from the sidelines, trying not to meddle. But she never forgot the nights we spent curled on the couch, watching reruns of old black and white films, or the way she mashed apples by hand when I was recovering from surgery. She called me Mama E, and to her I was never just a shadow. 6 months after my ashes were scattered in the garden I loved, a new building opened on the south side of town. Where an old bakery once stood, one I used to visit on Sundays, now rose a small but strong center with pale yellow walls, white trim, and a sign above the door carved carefully by hand. Evelyn's Grace, a sanctuary for women who gave everything. Inside you could smell cinnamon and lemon oil. There were warm blankets stacked in corners, soft music playing from a tiny speaker, and in the front hallway, the first thing you saw was me. Not in a casket, not in an urn, but in a portrait. I was wearing the green sweater Kelsey had once knit me for Christmas, holding a tray of apple pie, smiling. My eyes weren't sad. They were proud. On opening day, a local reporter came to cover the ribbon cutting. Kelsey stood at the podium, hands shaking slightly, but her voice never wavered. "Some women give everything," she began. "Their time, their homes, their strength, their silence. They give it for their children, their partners, their families. And sometimes, after all that, they're left behind, forgotten, overlooked, brushed off like dust from a table." She paused. The room was packed. Mothers, daughters, teachers, lawyers, even a few clergy. But no one moved. "But not today," she said. "Today, her name stands for healing." Evelyn didn't need applause. She didn't need recognition. She needed someone to say, "You mattered." So I'm saying it now. To every woman who's ever felt invisible, this place is for you. They clapped. Some cried. One woman whispered into her daughter's ear, "That could have been your grandma." Later, the newspapers picked up the story. Elderly woman leaves fortune to grandson's ex-wife. She treated me like a human being. Another headline read, "From forgotten to forever, Evelyn's Grace opens doors for abandoned women." It went viral. Donations poured in from across the state. A senator even mentioned the center during a speech about elder dignity and women's emotional safety post-divorce. I never wanted the spotlight, but if it helped even one woman say, "I deserve better," then let them put my name in lights. Monica and Darren, of course, were furious. They tried to spin the story, claimed I was senile, claimed the will was faked, but the lawyer had every paper, every recording, every notarized signature. And Kelsey? She didn't say a word to them, just continued to build. Each room in the center bore the name of a woman Kelsey had met during her darkest time. Carol's kitchen, Jasmine's room, Evelyn's library. There, on the shelves, were books I once loved, tattered copies of Little Women, Anne of Green Gables, and a cookbook from the 1950s that still had my handwritten notes in the margins. They even recreated my apple pie recipe, just from memory. One of the volunteers said it was the best thing she'd ever tasted. In her first newsletter, Kelsey wrote, "She did not ask for revenge. She asked for peace. But in giving me a second chance, she made sure her story would never end with silence. I suppose some might say this is petty, that I punished my family for being cruel, but it was not about punishment. It was about legacy, about choosing who carries your name forward, who protects your memory, who doesn't flinch when you grow old and need a hand with the stairs. I chose Kelsey because she saw me, not as an obstacle or an antique, but as a woman with breath still in her lungs and stories in her bones. And now she gives other women that same dignity. Every Thanksgiving, Evelyn's Grace hosts a dinner. No dress code, no expectations, just warmth, laughter, apple pie. And at the center of the table is one empty chair. Not for me, really, but for every woman who was told she no longer belonged at the table she helped build. It did not take long for the storm to come for Darren. Within a month of the will being read, he filed a lawsuit to contest it, claimed I was coerced, claimed Kelsey manipulated me, claimed senility, isolation, elder abuse, every excuse a desperate man could invent when he realized the gravy train had left the station. But my affairs had been handled with ruthless precision, every document notarized, every transfer recorded, every change in my will captured on video, in the presence of 2 attorneys and a court-appointed observer. I had left nothing to chance. Not this time. When the judge dismissed the case in less than 5 minutes, Darren looked like a boy caught stealing from a collection plate. His lawyer whispered something sharp in his ear. Darren shouted across the courtroom, pointing at Kelsey, "You don't deserve a cent. You were nothing. You still are nothing." Kelsey didn't flinch. She stood calmly, a quiet strength in her eyes that he could no longer read. And then came the final crack in his pretty little life. Monica left. Not with drama, not with yelling. Just a single manila envelope placed on their marble kitchen counter, on top of an unpaid electricity bill. Her handwriting was neat, cold. "You treated her like she was nothing. Now you have nothing. I married the image of a man, not the rot beneath him. Don't call me." She moved out that night, took the car, took the savings, took her designer handbags and her little dog, left Darren with empty cupboards and a fridge full of spoiled milk. I later learned he was evicted from the high-rise apartment less than a week after Monica left. Turns out, he'd been behind on the HOA fees for 6 months. Couldn't even pay the internet bill. One by one, everything unraveled. The final insult? The luxury watch I gave him when he graduated college, he pawned it for $300. 0 cents. The same watch he used to flash at family dinners like it was proof of his success. Now, he sleeps on the pull-out couch at a friend's condo on the outskirts of town, somewhere near the railroad tracks. The job he bragged about? Gone. Turns out the company doesn't take kindly to employees with pending lawsuits and public meltdowns. I imagine, some nights, he lies awake listening to the trains go by, wondering how things fell apart. They didn't fall, Darren. You kicked them. In the journal I left behind for my lawyer to read aloud, sealed and dated months before my death, I wrote, "He wanted me gone. Now he's the one without a home. There is no revenge here. Only math. You subtract love long enough, and eventually you have nothing." Funny how silence echoes louder than screams. I never raised my voice, never slammed a door. I just watched. And when the time came, I let gravity do the rest. Darren tried reaching out to Kelsey one last time. An email, poorly written, half apology, half manipulation. Maybe we were both wrong. Maybe we should talk. Kelsey never replied. Instead, she printed the email, framed it, and hung it behind her office door at Evelyn's Grace. A reminder to every woman who entered. Closure is something you give yourself. Word around town is Darren now works part-time at a local dealership, washing cars, answering phones. He tells people he's in between ventures. But the truth? He's a 29-year-old boy in a man's world who thought legacy came from blood, not from honor. As for Monica, she filed for divorce in silence, blocked his number, and now posts inspirational quotes on Instagram from some villa in Costa Rica. I hear she's dating a yoga instructor who teaches her how to breathe deeply and forget her past. Good for her. Let her find peace. She will need it. Because chasing gold in the pockets of old women doesn't pay as well as you think. I am not cruel. I simply remembered. I remembered every Christmas I spent knitting gifts, Darren never thanked me for. Every time he called me only to ask for money. Every lie he told Kelsey. Every time he turned her kindness into currency. And when they pushed my plate aside at that final Thanksgiving, laughing in my house like it already belonged to them, I made my decision. Let them feast. Let them toast. Let them count the spoils. I would count the days. And when the last day came, I gave the only thing I had left to someone who once helped me climb the stairs when I could barely breathe. In the end, Darren did not lose because I punished him. He lost because he never learned how to love what he had. My name is Evelyn June Parker, and by the time you read this, I'll be gone. No memorials, no flowers, no forced speeches. I asked for a quiet cremation and nothing more. Because when you've spent your last years being told you're too much or in the way, silence becomes your closest friend. But before I go completely silent, I want to leave behind one thing that cannot be erased, a truth that speaks louder than any shout from a bitter mouth. I used to believe family meant forever, that if you gave everything, your time, your money, your health, your heart, eventually they'd remember you kindly. I baked pies for Thanksgiving every year for 47 years. I stayed up with sick grandbabies when their parents could not. I co-signed loans, paid medical bills, sold my jewelry to keep the lights on. But love without memory is just labor. This past Thanksgiving, my grandson Darren said to my face, "You're not even family anymore." His wife Monica laughed and called me a witch. They did it while passing the turkey I bought. In the dining room, I paid off with every dime of my retirement. I was told to be quiet, to sit down, that I was just my son's mother. Just. The next day, I cleaned every plate by myself while they made plans for Black Friday. No one offered to help. No one asked if I was okay. My son came late, offered a shrug, and told me, "Let it go, Mom. Darren has his own life now." I nodded. Then I went upstairs, unlocked my safe, and took out the deed to the house. I stared at it for a long time. And then I called my lawyer. This time, I said, "I won't leave it blank." The blank was what I had left in my will a decade ago, thinking I'd let love decide. I thought those who deserved would show it. Instead, they mistook my silence for consent. They mistook my patience for powerlessness. So I changed it. I left everything to the only woman who ever looked at me like I mattered, Kelsey, my grandson's ex-wife, the one he discarded after she lost a pregnancy, telling her, "You lost the baby, you lost your value." But she never lost her grace. When I had surgery and no one else showed up, Kelsey did. She made soup, rubbed my hands when they shook, stayed the night when I was too weak to stand. She called me Mama E. And when Darren cheated on her and kicked her out, she didn't fight. She just left with a box of books and a crushed spirit. She never asked me for anything. That's why I gave her everything. She now runs Evelyn's Grace, a support center for women abandoned by men who once said forever. It helps mothers who've been made to feel worthless. It gives shelter, therapy, financial planning, and most of all, dignity. On the wall of the center, there's a portrait of me. I'm smiling, holding my apple pie. I look warm, whole, seen. That picture hangs higher than any family photo ever did in my house. When the news broke, elderly woman leaves $2,100,000, 0 cents to ex-granddaughter-in-law after Thanksgiving insult. People called me everything from bitter to brave. But the truth is, I was simply done waiting for kindness from people who only knew how to take. My son tried to reverse the will. He failed. Monica left Darren, left him a note. "You treated her like she was nothing. Now you have." He lost his job. He lives on a friend's couch now. He told a reporter I ruined his life. But I didn't. I just stopped letting him ruin mine. I'm not writing this for revenge. I'm writing this for the other grandmothers who cry quietly in laundry rooms, for the women who gave their lives to families that learned how to spell entitled before they learned how to say thank you. Do not go quietly into guilt. Do not believe them when they say your time has passed. You are not a burden. You are the reason the house stands, the reason holidays happen, the reason anyone in that room even had a shot at decency. Your shoulders built this house, and if they ever forget, do not be afraid to take back the bricks. I'll end with what I wrote in that newspaper piece. My last published words, printed in the Herald Tribune 2 weeks after I passed. Don't call me a burden, my shoulders built this house. Thanksgiving is about family. But sometimes, when the table becomes a throne for the ungrateful, you have to burn it. You have to build your own, with people who remember how to pass the bread without cutting your heart open. I may be gone, but my name lives on, and that finally is enough. Evelyn J. Parker. The article went viral. Women in nursing homes printed it out and taped it beside their beds. Kelsey Center received funding from the State Council for Women's Empowerment. Chapters of Evelyn's Grace opened in 3 more towns. And somewhere in a dusty attic, a box of forgotten Thanksgiving photos sits untouched, the people in them slowly realizing that inheritance is not about blood. It's about memory and respect. Darren's name was never mentioned again, but mine became a banner of grace. Not every family is bound by blood, and not every silence means surrender. Evelyn's story reminds us sometimes the quietest women carry the deepest strength, and when they speak, they rewrite everything. If this story moved you, if it made you think of someone society called a burden, but who built the very walls we live in, then don't let her voice fade. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories for more powerful, real-life journeys from the women the world forgot until now, because their truth still matters, and we're here to tell it.